Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing something completely different than what I normally do, but I think it falls in the category of gear for the Mr. Guns and Gear channel. And we're going to take a look at these two chainsaws here. Both of these are battery-powered chainsaws, but they're very, very different in terms of performance, application, and sort of user interface. So first off, why would you want a battery-powered chainsaw? Number one, you might not want one. I have a gas one. I have a 14-inch Husqvarna, if I'm saying that correctly, and that thing is awesome. It's very powerful, and so long as you maintain it and put the work in that goes with that, then it's just fine. However, it's very loud. It's also heavier than both of these as well. At least I believe it is. But you know, in certain situations, it would be harder to find gas than it would be to just charge a battery and go somewhere. So pros and cons there for sure. Then there's, of course, electric chainsaws, which require a plug, which require working power, and of course an extension cord to reach out to wherever you're going. Now you can power them off a generator. I know that is definitely one way to get around that. And then you have these guys here, which are battery powered. Battery powered tools have become much more popular in the last 4 or 5 years simply because the batteries have become much more powerful and much more usable. Hopefully the dog barking over there isn't too annoying in the microphone. We also have a chainsaw going right behind me across the lake. But the reason I've been using these two saws here a good bit over the last few days is because that we right now are about 8 days post Hurricane Florence hitting Carolina, and where I live, we got hit pretty hard. We were pretty much right in the direct path of it and got some of the worst. And basically around here, you know, certainly people have chainsaws. I'm sure I hear them. Like I said, there's one going across the lake from me right now. But there's a lot of folks with trees down that I could just see in their yards, and they were just there days later. So most of the filming you're going to see is going to be done in my neighbor's yard simply because logistically it's easier with the camera. But I've cleared about 4 lots so far with these two chainsaws in the last, 8 days. So realistically, probably the last 5 days because we had to wait for the storm to go away and the rain to stop. And we've learned some things about these two models. First off, they're very different. Again, this is the DeWALT 16-inch here. It's got a 60-volt battery. And this one, of course, Black Decker, I think it's a 10-inch blade, and it's got a 20-volt battery. This one here, the Black Decker, I've had for a long time. I guess probably right since it came out. All I've had to do is resharpen the blade in the years that I've had it. I've never had an issue with it at all. Very simple in terms of design. So here's our chain tensioner here, a little pump, as well as the part to put your barn chain oil in. And people have asked online, barn chain oil is the same for these ones as it is for a gas one. No difference there. Our little safety to deactivate it, and then of course the trigger here to actuate it. On the left side of the chainsaw, as you use it, here we have our battery packs. These are 20 volts. From what I understand, you can use the 40 volts on here as well. I don't have any. However, I do have an extra 20 volt, which is nice. We have our little breaker here, and then our handle to grip it however you see fit. A big downside, in my opinion, of this chainsaw is battery life. So each battery on a 20 volt, if you're cutting hardwood, like I was cutting an oak just across the way there, it's not good. Battery life maybe like 4 minutes ish. And you can only get so much done depending on the size and the density of the wood that you're cutting in that case. On pine, you're probably going to get 8 to 10 minutes out of it. But again, the spare batteries here are relatively inexpensive, and they're very common. I have a couple of them, as you can see here, in my pocket. So that is definitely one advantage of them. It's just cost in general. On this chainsaw here, out the door is less than $100 shipped. But the big downside of it, like I said, is the blade length, as well as the power and the battery life. Now, for most stuff around the yard, light work, stuff like that, it's very easy. It's very lightweight as well to throw in the back of a truck or something like that. Like when I went to work following the hurricane, every day I had this in the back of my truck just in case a road was blocked or something like that. I need to clear something. So for those kind of purposes, it works really well. This one here, the DeWALT, not the sturdiest table. The big advantage here is going to be the power, and a lot of that comes from this battery here. This is the 60 volt flex volt. Make sure I want to say that. And one thing I want to point out is that if you have a bunch of tools with like the 20 volt batteries here or the 18 volts, you can't use them in this chainsaw. You would think that it would work, but it doesn't. The chargers are the same. You can charge them with either, but you can't just stick the 20 volt in here. It simply doesn't work. So this battery here, though, is very, very powerful and gives you a pretty long run life. I would say probably, again, we're talking battery powered. If you're using hardwood, probably 12 to 15 minutes of straight cutting. It charges in about 2 hours in my experience. It has a little battery indicator there to let you know where the battery is at. And just from user interface, here's our brake, and then of course pull it back when you want to actually run the chainsaw. We have the little safety here, thumb safety. It's definitely oriented towards a right-handed cutter, both with the way that the handle is, and of course that little safety. And then of course we're going to push down at that point, pull, and it will be going. On the right side of this chainsaw, you see one of the bigger problems that we have here. This chainsaw has one big downside. Again, the benefit is power. For a battery-powered chainsaw, it's very, very powerful. It's equivalent to most electric chainsaws in terms of power, so it's just below gas, but one of the more powerful battery ones out there on the market. So a couple problems, right? So the chain tensioner here, it like limits how much you can put tension on the chain, and then the bar here, I don't know if that comes across, but it's very, very flexible. And to tighten that down, you have this little thing there that it doesn't, this little, I guess, a quarter turn piece that flips up. The problem with that is it limits how tight you can actually tighten the bar down on the saw. And the problem you run into from a user interface standpoint is anytime you're cutting at like an angle and you're not going straight in, you know, the wood's putting different pressure on the bar throughout the cut. It can just either bind up, lose the ability to cut, or I mean, you just have to take a different angle. It simply doesn't work. Additionally on that, I've had the chain come off on this one a couple times, which is, you know, chains come off chainsaws, it happens. But this one seems to happen at an unusually high rate. Again, I have 3 chainsaws, the one that you just saw, the little one, and then I have the Husqvarna. And this one, by far and away, chain comes off way, way more. I attribute that, me personally, to this thing right here. I mean, it's just so flimsy. And for a chainsaw that costs what this one does, it costs right around $325. That's not good. So that's the downside of it for sure, is that that thing there is just, it just seems pretty flimsy overall. On the left side of the chainsaw, you can see right here we have our little oil, barn oil thing. It's very easy to take out and fill up. This one is an auto oiler. You just turn it a quarter turn and then you can put your oil in there. It takes, you know, regular bar and chain oil. I think in the manual it says that you can also use 30 weight motor oil should you have to. But pros of this one, again, power. It's also a little bit heavier. I think this one's like 12 pounds. So for a battery powered chainsaw, it's pretty darn heavy compared to something like this. Again, it's just, I mean, it's like for 4 pounds, I think. It's super lightweight. One thing about this as well with the bar and chain is that it's an auto lubricating blade, so you don't control it from the user side. I don't know if that's good or bad. I really don't. With this one here and our Black Decker, we have to push it in there to actually drive the oil onto the blade. Obviously, DeWALT makes a smaller one that's more competitive with this one, and Black Decker makes a bigger one that's more competitive with this one. But just in terms of overall build quality, you know, I have a ton of DeWALT tools. Obviously, I had the extra batteries behind there. I have skill saws, multiple drills. I have never had any issues with DeWALTs or problems with it. And outside of this bar, it seems pretty well built, but that bar interface is just janky. And long term, I don't think I'd feel super comfortable with it. We'll see over the years as I continue to use it. But this one here, I mean, it's rock solid. It doesn't move. It's metal. I mean, I'm sure this is too. Feels like aluminum anyway. Maybe it's might be steel, but if it's steel, it's really, really thin. But this one definitely just feels much more sturdy, rock solid. It doesn't move. And that one there, again, sometimes it'll just lock up on you when you're in the middle of a cut and just stop working, and you just have to yank it out as best you can and start from scratch. So pros and cons for sure. I think most folks are looking at a battery-powered chainsaw. And again, if you're looking at a battery-powered chainsaw, you don't want something that's going to clear acres and acres of land. That's not the purpose, right? If that's the case, get yourself a good steel Husqvarna gas one. If you want something for light work around the yard, or maybe going in the woods, or like when I go out to the range, sometimes I cut down branches and stuff for shooting lanes. This one does that job very, very well. And again, for the money, I absolutely have a grand total of no complaints about it. It runs well, it just doesn't run very long. So I've cut things up to at least 20 inches wide with it. You definitely have to get creative with your cutting technique though if you want to do that. It's not designed for that, but it can do it in a pinch. Again, you just kind of have to be creative with your cutting. This one, again, really good power, but I probably wouldn't buy this one again. I would definitely buy this one again for sure. So that's it. that's my thoughts. I wanted to get that off my chest here as I've been, again, using these two chainsaws for the last 5 days, basically during any free time I've had, and everything's fresh in my mind. So I just kind of wanted to get it out there while it's still right here and not in my memory that I've lost already. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions about either of these two chainsaws, by all means, post down below in the comments section. If you have experience with either of these, rather let us know. This one here's had real good reviews. Both of these actually have real good reviews on Amazon, which is where I picked them up. This one's got like 4.5 stars. I think this one does as well, but I wouldn't give it 4.5 stars. So that's pretty much where we're at. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you're new here and you like what you saw, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see everybody in the next video.